Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on Gran Turismo 7, and I am back with the new 2 million credit guide at Spa in the Redbull Junior for this round, and we are in wet conditions, well, intermediate conditions. You'll be using the intermediate tyres for this time trial. Hopefully we can help you get that gold as easy as possible. If you don't manage the gold, I think you should be able to get close to the silver maybe. But this is going to be a trickier one than you've had in the past with some of the recent time trials. This one is definitely going to be one where you're going to want to really watch these guides and try and find as much pace as you can. So to enter this time trial, you simply go into sport mode in the top right hand corner, click on that, and you'll be greeted with the online time trial screen. You click on that, you'll have 2 time trials available. If you want to do the Lego Major one and you haven't done that yet, I do have a guide on the channel for that. Simply go into the 2 million credit playlist and it'll be on there. But also this one, the Circuit Spa, we are in the Redbull Junior, and as you can see there, it is in wet conditions. So click onto this one and you can see the times currently needed for gold. I would predict you're going to need to go faster than the 41.5 because the amount of time that I keep finding on this, it's quite drastic. So you might even need to get down to a low 41 to be able to get the gold on this, and probably a 44.2 to 3 maybe, or around that area for the silver. And obviously below probably a 52 flat for a bronze. Now the top time currently 37.2. I'm in the top 10, so if you do want to chase my goals, simply go into the leaderboard, look for key 25 or the key 25. If you're on my friends list, you might see it as that, but key 25. I'm currently P6 in the world, which is a solid lap, and hopefully we can help you get the gold, as you know, or close to the gold, silver as much as possible. This is not going to be an easy one this week for some people. So starting your lap, try and get a good solid exit off that final corner and work your way into turn 1. Now we are going to be looking for the 100 board on our left, and we are going to brake just short of that 100 board. So you can see it there, onto the brakes just short of the 100 board. Now brake in a straight line. We're going to take a very late apex. You can see we're not going to turn in yet, still being hesitant, and then down to first gear, let the car rotate with first gear, and then we're going to go back up to second gear as we're turning. So you can see back up to second gear, inputs on the throttle go in, and just be careful. You can see how we're doing about 50-60% throttle, and being very cautious before we go 100% because the car wheel spins up and you lose so much momentum. Didn't quite hook that up, actually lost a 10th there just on the exit, maybe a bit more than a 10th. And now we're going to work our way down the hill, and this is really important. As you're coming through here, you've got to get the left hand tyre up onto the curb and then swing it instantly into the right. So as you're onto the curb, now we're going to swing it up and try and get the right hand tyre as close to the curb on the right hand side as possible. So downshift to 5th gear, back onto the throttle. Now again, didn't quite hook this up perfectly, had to go into 6th gear earlier than I would have liked. But at the top of the hill, what you want to do is try and go straight line as possible. So you can see over the top of the hill, using as much track limits as possible. You can see in 6th gear, I'm actually going 2 miles per hour slower at the top of the hill there than an optimal line. So probably at this stage of this lap, I'm about 2 tenths down on an optimal run at least. But going into the next braking zone, we are going to use the 100 board as a reference. Braking just before that, you can see braking input going in just before the 100 board. And again, slow it down to 3rd gear. And then as we come into this corner, we're going to go down to 2nd gear and try and get a slight drift going, and then back up to 3rd gear. So you see down to 2nd gear, then we're going to go back up to 3rd gear as the drift goes. Now I do go a little bit deep into the corner with that, but manage to recover it and don't take too much of the curb off. You don't really want to get too much curb there because it unsettles the car a little bit. And then using 3rd gear all the way through again, it's about widening the line into this right hand corner and trying to get the exit speed as much as possible. So again, little dab of the brakes as we go into this corner. It's not a massive amount, just a tiny bit to put the weight onto the front of the car, and then back onto the throttle. Careful you don't hit the bollards on the right hand side, and just be cautious on the throttle. You can see how I'm not putting 100% throttle initially through that corner, then early upshift to 4th gear, and then let the car accelerate down into the next braking zone, which again I'm going to use the start of the curb on the left hand side here. You can see it there, braking just before that as a reference. And we're going to brake as late as possible, but trying to get into the initial part of the apex, and then the car's going to run a little bit wide. So you can see onto the brakes, and we're going to try out trail brake into this corner now, down to 2nd gear. And then you can see I'm trying to get it close to the apex, but then you've got to kind of let it run a little bit deep so that you can square the car off, get up to 3rd gear, and get a nice smooth exit in third gear. You can see again, throttle input's about 50, 60, 70%, never 100% through there. And then on the exit, 100%. And now this left-hand corner, you can see that slight shade of colour on the beams on the right-hand side. I use that as a reference for braking. Just on the brakes, dead on that. And now we're going to try and rotate this car in. Now you want to get the car as much onto this curb on the right-hand side as much as possible to widen the line in and square it in so you can get on the throttle a little bit early. You can see how we get on the throttle nice and early on that exit there, and get really good traction out the corner because we squared it off so nicely. And I actually gained a bit of time back there, maybe a tenth or so. And now we're going to use the 50 board as our reference for this really fast left-hand corner. Braking just before that 50 board. And again, down to fourth gear. I was a bit cautious in this corner on this because I knew I was on an okay lap, so I was a little bit too cautious here. You can see as we're coming through here, I'm taking it very cautious, being very gentle with the throttle on the brake. And then you can see now the throttle input's going in and being really cautious with that fourth gear. And I actually upshift to fifth gear a little bit too early there. Too cautious, definitely. You can see the car in head. He's pushing much more. He actually gets a drift going from there. But the fifth gear will stop that drift, but it's a little bit slower. Now we're going into the next braking zone, which we use the 50 board on the left-hand side. I brake way before that 50 board, you can see here. Long time before the 50 board and before the puddle on the left-hand side going into that corner. Now here you can see again, you're going to go quite deep onto the brakes. You're not going to take that tight line that you'd normally take. You're going to take a slightly wider line to try and rotate it and square it off again. And now watch what I do with the throttle. A little bit of throttle input to try and get the car to a little bit of a snap, and then back on the brakes to try and rotate it into the left, because you don't want to be too close to these bollards on the left because there's a massive puddle there. So you just want to get that left-hand tire to just graze along the inside, and then you can get on the throttle as early as possible on this exit, and then early upshift to fourth gear into the next braking zone. Now you do have a puddle quite handy there that you can use as a reference. You can see I'm on the brakes pretty much as we're going towards the puddle and before the start of the curb on the left, and then down to third gear. Again, we don't want to get close to the apex here because there's a puddle on the right. It will cause you to understeer, and again slowly up onto that throttle, and now into this fast right hand corner. Now for this fast right hand corner, we're just going to lift off the throttle. So we're in third gear currently. You can see what we're going to do here is we're going to give a little lift off the throttle, and then we're going to go back up to fourth gear as we're going through the corner. So watch how we do this. Back up to fourth gear, and then just be very patient on this throttle. You want to try and take a wider line here. Let the left-hand tire get up onto the curb, but just don't put too much steering input there because you can snap the car. And I actually got a really nice exit off that corner and probably got my lap into the 37s through that exit. And now we're going to go into this flat, almost flat out left-hand corner. So for this part, you're going to use a lot of the track on the right-hand side. You can see, using this puddle as a reference for our braking, you're right into this puddle here. And we're going to get the car over the white line and then rotate it in down to fifth gear, then back up to sixth gear. A little bit of a rear twitching through there. Lost a little bit of time there. I've come out that exit at 139, so that was a bit off pace. However, we get the braking pretty much spot on here, braking just before the 150 board. And now, again, braking in a straight line. Down to fourth, down to third, down to second. And then we're actually going to go down to first gear for a bit of extra rotation into this corner. And you're going to see it actually slides in slightly. So watch how the car reacts. First gear, starts drifting in, over the curb on the right-hand side. And then a little bit of acceleration. And then we're going to go a little dab of the brakes as we're coming into this corner, just to put that weight onto the front of the car again to rotate it. And then you can see the throttle inputs going in second gear and try and get as smooth as exit as possible. You can see I'm not going to go 100% throttle. We're being very, very cautious. You can see I actually lifted off that throttle when I went to 100 just to try and find that traction, and over the line for a 2 minutes 37.8. Now, I do think there's a lot of time to find in that. I think I've got at least a 37.5 in me. And I think some people are going to get well into the 36s here because there's just so much time to find with the different lines. We'll watch it from the chase camera with the kilometers an hour on instead of miles per hour. And you can see little mistakes, like the first sector was at least a 10th and a half off what I know I can get. And I think we lost at least a 10th and a half elsewhere in the middle sector, and probably a little bit at the end as well. So I think there's definitely, I can get below a 37.5, probably into a low 37 if I was to really push this time trial. But I did want to make sure I got into the 37s for you lot, so that you can see where we're gaining that time, where I'm gaining that time, and hopefully find the pace for you. But again, you can see here, just before the 100 board, keeping it in a straight line. Now watch how the car rotates when I go into second gear. Then I go instantly into third gear to try and save that. And I try and avoid that big puddle over that curb because it seems to unsettle the car. And one thing that might actually happen as well is these curbs might actually reduce your tyre temperature a bit. So just be cautious with these puddles because they can possibly take a bit of heat out your tyres. But again, this corner, you can see how we're squaring it off, upshift to third gear. And again, this corner, you can see how I use a lot of the curb on the right hand side up onto the curb, swinging it in. This corner is where I gained quite a bit of time back because I got a really nice exit from that corner and was able to accelerate now into this really fast left-hand corner. So yeah, try and square the car. It's all about taking slightly wider lines than you would normally take in the dry and being very smooth. You can see that early upshift to 5th gear kept the car really smooth through there, but it wasn't optimal for pace. So you decide if you want to go for smoothness, early upshift to 5th. If you want to go for that ultimate lap, probably push 4th gear a little bit more with the revs. Again through here, being very careful of that puddle on the left. You can see how we just graze along it, because if you go in that, it's going to ruin your lap slightly. So try and stay out of that puddle. Again, this right-hand corner, avoiding the puddle on the right-hand side just as we go through that corner, and now use a bit of curb. And then this corner, very important to take a wider line and just be smooth with your steering inputs. You can see how smooth I was there, really got the exit speed. Again, that corner there probably rescued this lap a little bit and got me into them 37s. And then this corner here, little bit of a mistake. You can see the car gets a little bit sideways. Could have done this definitely better and gained at least half attempt to attempt. You can see I got too much curb on the left. That's one thing you've got to avoid, which I did, and that's going to lose me a bit of pace going into the braking zone. But we managed to get that slide into the corner, down to 1st gear, gets it sliding in, then a little bit of acceleration, and then got quite good traction in 2nd gear, considering I was taking a quite tighter line through there. So not too bad, pretty happy with that lap. Hopefully this guide is going to help you get the gold or the silver or the bronze. Let me know in the comments what it helps you get. Let me know if it's helped you out at all. It's always great reading them comments. Subscribe to the channel and I'll be back with more of these videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.